This is ContraZone.
Where we go back and forth about film.
I'm Dakota Arsenault.
And I'm Matthew Simpson. On
today's show, we are continuing our A24 Retrospective series. This is our 34th edition. You can listen to recent episodes 310, A24 Retrospective Oasis Supersonic, 304, A24 Retrospective Val, or go all the way back to episode 108, A History of A24 Films, to get the full backstory on the company. If you've been following along, you know that we jumped around a bit for the last few A24 retrospectives, but we are back on track, for now at least, with Room, the 2015 film directed by Lenny Abrahamson. The movie is about a young woman named Joy, also known as Ma, who at 17 was kidnapped and kept hostage in a shed where her captor gets her pregnant. Just after her son Jack's 5th birthday, Joy manages to orchestrate their escape from Room and return to society. The reason we went out of order for a bit was I was in contact with someone that worked on the film to come on as a guest, but it didn't quite pan out. But we do have an excellent guest today.
Joining us today is critic Alex Southey, who was last heard on episode 301, the 2025 Oscars wrap-up. Alex is a writer who runs the publication Play with Rabbit Ears, hosts the Your Worst Song podcast, and whose writing can be found on thatshelf.com. Welcome back to the show, Alex. How are you today?
Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I loved hearing that. I didn't get a chance to listen to the episode, but I want to. What did you guys like Oasis Supersonic? I want to know just quickly.
It was fine. I'm not a big Oasis fan, so that sort of colors my appreciation of that movie.
Okay, sure.
I timed it with the release of the start of their tour. I figured that would help do well, and spoiler alert, it did not actually help the episode do well.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, so I guess fool on me for thinking Oasis fans are also movie fans.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Well, some of them are, because, we had, I can't remember who it was now.
It was Alex Watson.
Yeah, and he's a big Oasis guy. Yeah. So I thought the movie was fine. But it was really interesting to speak to him as I don't know if super fan is the right word, but like a much bigger fan than either of us, for sure. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting I thought it was an interesting discussion anyway.
Right. Perhaps he could appreciate it like a little bit, or in different ways at least, if he knows more about what they're going to put on screen. But anyway, yeah. All right. I enjoyed it myself as like a general Oasis fan. Just because it's nice. Sometimes it is just nice to have a depiction of a career of a band you kind of like, and then you can just walk through it. And also kind of love them or hate them. They're good for interview quotes, the Gallagher brothers. So, I mean, that makes it fun.
Yeah, if I remember Alex's thoughts on the film, I hope I'm not paraphrasing you too much here, Alex. I know you're probably listening to this, but from what I remember, a lot of the information in that documentary is stuff that's previously been out there, so it wasn't a lot of like, oh, these are new revelations. But still, the home video aspect and things like that, I think people always appreciate getting sort of never before seen footage or behind the scenes footage of famous people like that, especially musicians in the art process.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it too, because I think it's been a minute, so I'd have to go back and, listen or at least check my notes. But I think that was my sort of takeaway, was that it was a fine documentary, but maybe lacked, a bit of depth that I maybe wanted it to have.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's kind of my criticism with Oasis in a lot of cases.
Oh, shots fired. I like
Yeah.
Hey, I like a lot of Oasis songs, but you can't dig too deep with a lot of them.
Nice. Yeah. Well, this is actually, I'm finally now completing all the movies that A24 released in 2015. As I said, jumped around a little bit, but there were 11 films that were released in 2015, and I did this before for both 2014 and 2013, where I named my top 3 films from that year. I know I'm catching you off guard here, Alex. You do not have to prep for this, but I am just publicly going on record saying that my top 3 from that year were Ex Machina, Room, and then probably the end of the tour, although there was a couple other that was in contention for me. Matthew, I know you haven't seen all of them, but what was your top 3 from that year?
Yeah, I think there's you said 11 A24 films released in that year, so
Mhm.
I've only seen about half of them, I believe. But my number one is easily Ex Machina as well, um, followed by, depending on the day you ask, it'll be either Mississippi Grind or Room and Mississippi Grind. Like one of those two will be two, and one of them will be number three. I haven't seen the end of the tour, but it does look like exactly my kind of shit, so it's
It's
going
a
to go on my list.
great movie. I loved that movie. The end of
Yeah.
the tour.
Yeah,
M-
I just feel like Mississippi Grind is also like a very underrated one, um,
I've never even
and
heard of it.
it's Ben Mendelsohn and Ryan Reynolds, but it's
Oh,
Ryan
hilarious!
Reynolds,
I
but
actually
Ryan
saw
Reynolds in his phase when he was still acting,
that. Yeah, I know
which
what
I
you
know
mean.
is a very reductive way to put it, but like when he was still making stuff that wasn't just Deadpool again. Like
Yeah,
been in a very much in a phase the last several years, and this is right before that when he was still like making interesting, different choices.
no, I know what you mean.
A phase I'd really like him to get back to.
Yeah, he's moved from character to like caricature, but he's fine with it. Meta caricature, and yeah, it's anyway. I do remember that movie, but all good choices.
Yeah, I think Mississippi Grind would probably be my number four. 2015 was not a great year for the company overall. I'm notably less high on Amy than a lot of other people are. But yeah, it's really Ex Machina, and then a few others that are solid, and then a bunch of others that are not great. So 2016 definitely looks to be better, and I'm very excited to dive into that year where they have even more movies. It's going to take me even longer to complete that.
Yeah, I was going to say I was looking at the list of 2015 movies, and I'm pretty sure we talked about Dark Places on this very show, and I remember it being not great.
Yeah, pretty bad. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, let's move on back to our topic at hand.
Right. But before we begin that, one thing that happens on the show that I have definitely done as well is we ask each guest our A24 four questions. We do this with every A24 retrospective guest. So, Alex, are you ready to answer your four questions?
I am afraid to, but I am ready.
Oh, don't be afraid. No judgments here, except for all the judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
So, question number one: what are your top three A24 films?
Okay, so in no order, uh, Lady Bird. I just have to say that nearly objectively, that has to be, I guess, my favorite. I saw it like 3 times in the theater, which is something I rarely do, and then multiple times after. I was annoying to everybody about it when it came out. So that one, I next I have Moonlight or Beau is Afraid. Moonlight blew me away, but Beau is Afraid is kind of like nothing I've ever seen, or at least for a long time. I might have to go with Beau is Afraid, but Moonlight is amazing. And then my third one is from this year, actually. If I had legs, I'd kick you. It blew me away at TIFF and kind of made me see that Rose Byrne has kind of another gear that she's able to shift into if she wants to. Uh, so that just for, and Conan, Conan alone could probably get him in this top three. But yeah, no, probably those. But there are so many. It was like a real. This is a tough question. I was looking through all the movies that A24 had put out, and like, look, yeah, there are some stinkers or whatever if you comb through, but for the most part, they've got a pretty decent batting rating.
I'm pretty sure Dakota can back me up when I say that that is a pretty consistent refrain when people answer this question.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure I said exactly that when it was my turn.
yeah. There you
And
go.
I'm looking at the stats that I've collected, and I think obviously if I had legs I'd kick you is unique because it just came out, but I think
Yeah.
all three of your picks are unique to you. No one else has picked either Lady Bird or Beau is Afraid as far as I can tell.
Oh, no Ladybird choice? That's blasphemous. Come
Yeah.
on.
I'd
Uh,
be willing to bet that if this was a top five question,
it
there
would be
would
in a lot
be
of top fives.
there would be in a lot of top fives. Would be my
All right,
guess.
fair enough. I appreciate those. I appreciate that.
But it's also like you're right. They have so many good films that like everyone's list is valid pretty much.
100%. I could have chose 3 other movies and I would have felt mostly as okay with it, you know?
Just before we move on, I just want, because I haven't seen it yet, but I'm very excited to. Dakota, have you seen If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You?
No, not yet. That's one of those movies where I know eventually I'll watch it, but I'm not prepared for it. So I've avoided it at both festivals that it played at that I was attending.
Okay, yeah, that's funny. It's this kind of thing where I was like, I was glad I was seeing it in a theater because I think it wouldn't have the same emotional impact if I was watching it on a laptop. And it's not the kind of movie, well, it is the kind of movie that sometimes it's so stressful you would like to pause it and go and walk and get a coffee and then come back. But you just have to sit in it. And that's kind of part of its power. But anyway, yeah, I'm curious what you guys will think when you do see it.
I'm very excited to see it.
Yeah. I mean,
As a,
the comp, I guess, that's most everyone's going to make is a woman under the influence, but it's really it's its own as well. It's much more modern.
I mean, I've been a big Rose Byrne fan for a long time, and that gear you're talking about, I've always assumed she could get there, so I'm
Mm,
very, very excited.
nice, awesome.
All right, question number 2. What was your introduction to A24?
I think it really was Spring Breakers or the Bling Ring. I don't know which one I saw first, but I was at the right age to be sort of lulled into whatever Spring Breakers was trying to do, at least on the surface, where it's like 4 young stars in some way, and then James Franco sort of pre the height of his weirdness, let's say. And he was still known to be pretentious and disliked and whatever. But that plus Harmony Korine and all of these different things, I just thought it was worth checking out. And then Bling Ring, you know, I was the right age to be like, what's Hermione gonna do after Harry Potter? And then one of the things is Bling Ring, so I wanted to check it out. And I know that's Sofia Coppola, so it was one of those two.
Interesting. I do have a very soft spot in my heart for Spring Breakers, even though I find it to be a difficult film to watch, and one that
Same.
I never want to. I'm never in the mood to revisit it, but I'm always like, I should watch that again.
There's
But
something special about it. It's not all bad like some people think.
I mean, I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's challenging.
Okay.
Um, I also think it's more difficult now because of revelations about one of the the main star
Yes.
guy.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I find his work to be difficult to revisit at times.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's a whole other podcast. So
Yes. Yeah. Different retrospective.
yeah,
But
Dakota,
yeah,
is that one
you're
people bring up at all, or is like as like their intro? Or I find it to be
yeah.
an interesting choice.
Yeah, I think it sort of comes down to two answers depending on how you want to look at it. There were, people that were paying close attention to movies in 2013 will often say that they watched Spring Breakers around that time because the hype was real around that movie. It
Yeah.
was had a big groundswell of like internet sensation and interest to it because of who was involved in it.
Sorry, just to actually add, I will add. It's not like I went to watch Spring Breakers going, I've heard about this company, A24. I'm excited to see what they bring out. I had no idea what A24 was. So, in that way, it wasn't an introduction. I just mean that was the first movie that I saw from that company.
Yes, and yeah, that's what I was gonna say next. Is like a lot of people will say that they saw Spring Breakers when it came out, but it wasn't until maybe Ex Machina came out when people were like starting to maybe recognize that company name, and then it was maybe a year after Ex Machina where it was like, oh hey, it's that studio that also did Ex Machina, and oh they also did Spring Breakers. Oh that's interesting. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, I'd say that's spot on exactly.
Yeah. So it sort of took them a couple years, and like I've got the chronology release order up. Spring Breakers was the third movie they released. It came out in March 2013. The Bling Ring came out 2 months later in June of 2013. So like whatever one you saw first, it was right around the beginning when they were
Okay.
still trying to figure out what the heck that they were doing.
Yeah.
I think it's funny too because I think if we were to go back to my episode where I answered these questions, I think that would actually be pretty much exactly what I said.
You did say Spring Breakers was your first one.
Yeah, like and then I said probably something like Ex Machina was the first one where I was like, oh okay,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I need to pay attention now.
Yeah. That's a very common answer for a lot of people.
And
Yeah.
so many of these, I've got that first year up too, that list, and like so many of these, I look back on and I go, oh, I watched that, but again, it's the same answer. I didn't know it was A24. Like Enemy, Lock with an E, Obvious Child, all that stuff. Like I remember those coming out, but I don't think of them as A24. I thought of, for example, Obvious Child as like, oh, that Jenny Slate movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yep. All right. Question number 3. What director, dead or alive, would make a good A24 film?
yeah, I chose two living ones. And honestly their output isn't like stellar all the way through, but I think just from what their vibe and so on. So the first one was Derek Cianfrance. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his second name, but Place Beyond the Pines alone, I feel like could have been an A24 movie. You could have told me that and I would have bought it. Um, and the other one I had written was Andrew Dominic, who did the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. He's somebody else who could probably do a good one.
Yeah, I think especially Cian France. I also don't know how exactly to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Would be a great pick, especially with his both The Place Beyond the Pines and Blue Valentine. Both really
Yes, that
feel like,
era.
yeah, that era. His latest movie, Roofman, I really enjoyed it, but like that does not fit in sort of the A24 style, or at least what's predominantly known as the A24 style. But I still agree with what you said, and Dominic as well. I know he's lost basically all of his cachet after the release of Blonde.
Yeah.
But yeah, Assassination of Jesse James, one of the most beautifully shot movies ever, in my opinion.
That's an unbelievable movie.
Yeah, I could definitely see, something like that. They don't do a ton of period pieces that they release, but yeah, I definitely could see both of them being very obvious picks for them to work with in the future.
Yeah, if I could throw in just another, a third one I was thinking is, see, the irony is I don't even remember the guy's name now, but you guys know the movie Kill List? It ends up being kind of like a folk horror movie, but it's two English guys. Um, gosh, man,
Yes. Ben
from
Wheatley.
2011.
Oh yeah, Ben Wheatley. He's done a few A24 films.
Oh, he has. Okay, my
Yeah,
bad. I didn't. That was just off the top of my head, so I didn't check if he has. But hey, there you go.
yeah. Free Fire was one for sure that he did, and I'm trying to remember if he's done any others.
Okay.
Was High Rise A24? High Rise
No, it
feels like it would
was.
be A24.
No, actually, you know what? I think it is just Free Fire.
That guy's got such
Um,
an interesting filmography. It
Mhm.
doesn't make a lot of sense.
yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to obviously choose like, Kubrick, but I don't actually think that I mean, there's an argument to be made, whatever. But I couldn't really think of any of like the legends that everybody's familiar with that I think it would suit them really well. I don't know. Maybe you guys have a different opinion, but it's not like I'm thinking, yeah, Steven Spielberg would make a great A24 movie.
I mean, Steven Spielberg would make a
He
great
probably
whatever kind of
would,
movie he wants.
but yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the sort of things is they often work with very small budgets. I know recently
Right.
they've started trying to expand their budget, especially with what was the film last year? Well, it was Warfare. I think was their highest
Oh,
budgeted film at
yeah.
like almost 50 million or something like that, and that was like a huge jump for them. And so like people like Spielberg and Kubrick, I just think by virtue of the fact that they often had very large budgets, and Spielberg's case still does, sort
Yeah.
of eliminates
Yeah.
what they do.
Yeah, I'm not going to say James Cameron for this
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
I was also going to say Kelly Reichardt. Like her movies aren't quite the right vibe for A24, but if she shifted, if she pivoted one foot into more like crime discomfort or something stylist more stylized, a genre more stylized like that, she might do well.
Well, she actually has done a few
Oh
A24 films.
man. All
First
right. Well,
Cow is one.
oh
I
yeah.
don't think Certain Women was.
It looks like
Showing
Just
Up
for
was.
Oh, showing up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, Sorry about that.
No worries. It's one of those things where I obsessively pay attention to the list of filmmakers that have made A24 films, and I know a lot of other people don't. So it is never something you should be ashamed of.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
It's interesting. I do think that San Francisco would be a great pick, though. Like,
100%.
Yeah, I think he's the right one for that.
and I think that like the reason you think so is that it wasn't Place Beyond the Pines neon. Like one of his films was neon, which is a very similar vibe. And also Sound of Metal, which he didn't direct, but he helped write,
I didn't know that.
Is not an A24 film, but feels like it should be.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a good call out, I think.
All right. Well, thank you. What did you guys say when it was your turn? Or what would you say?
I could tell you what Matthew said. Matthew said Jonathan Levine.
Oh, I'm going to have to... the name sounds very familiar. I just am not...
And I didn't answer these questions because I came up with them.
50-50, amazing movie.
Yeah.
Long shot, Mr. Okay, yeah. I could see that. That makes sense.
Yeah, he makes the kind of like, relationship comedy type movies that fit their vibe, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. So question number 4, the last question, no pressure. What, to you, Alex Southey, makes an A24 film?
Okay. Quick question. It's okay if I'm not. Are we allowed to swear? This is just casual swearing.
Yeah, go right ahead. That's fine.
I wrote. Keep in mind, I wrote this late last night. But I said it's good hipster artsy stuff, but also hipster bullshit. But it's more the former. So it's like it is as pretentious often as other people think it is from the outside, but often it like delivers. So it's okay.
Nice.
That
If you
might
want
be
the
the best encapsulation of it I've heard to date.
Thank you. If you want like a longer answer, it's like highly stylized. It's typically not a comedy. It's typically drama. It's sometimes like crime or something mysterious. Yeah, smaller budget, like you said. And yeah, I don't know. There are certain telling things, but I feel like it kind of just comes down to vibe and aesthetic a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair assessment. I know other people have sort of said similar-ish things as you, not as succinctly, I will say. But yeah, a vibe is a word that comes up a lot when this question gets asked.
Yeah. Also, for the record, I say this as a overall fan of A24. They put out like mostly great movies and everything.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, I definitely understand where you're coming from.
That's the case with a lot of like stuff trying to be art. Sometimes that's embarrassing or pretentious, but they pull it off, so it's okay,
Yeah. Okay. Well, let us move on to our subject at hand.
Truck. Wiggle out. Jump. Run. Somebody.
I'm scared.
I know. I'm gonna be there in your head talking to you the whole time.
Truck. Wiggle out. Jump when the truck slows down. Run. Somebody.
You alright? Jack, listen to me. This is our chance.
Thank you for letting us do this interview. We're grateful to hear your story.
Room was directed by Lenny Abrahamson, a Dublin, Ireland native, previously best known for the film Frank, starring Michael Fassbender, who plays the lead singer of an indie band who never takes off a large papier-mâché head, that came out in 2014. Room stars Brie Larson as Joy, who after being kidnapped at the age of 17, has spent the past 7 years locked in the shed by a man known only as Old Nick, played by Sean Bridgers. Joy is now 24 with a 5-year-old son named Jack, played by Jacob Tremblay. Jack has only ever known Room, with Joy being able to shelter him from Old Nick's nightly assaults as she hides the reality of their existence from him. After the power gets shut off during the winter, Joy realizes she must escape for the hope of the survival of her and her son. After faking Jack's death and rolling him up into a rug, Joy is able to convince Old Nick to give the boy a burial, where when his pickup truck slows down, Jack is to hop out of the bed and find any person and scream for help. After successfully escaping, Jack and Joy must navigate the real world. Jack, having never been exposed to any people other than his mom and what he sees on TV, struggles to connect with people and understand how to be a normal kid. Joy, on the other hand, feels immense guilt and shame, even blaming her mother for the kidnapping. The first half of the film takes place in the titular room, while the back half is about the duo trying to adapt and recover from their trauma. In May of 2014, A24 acquired the rights to the film, which was based on a popular novel by Emma Donoghue, before it even began shooting. The movie had its world premiere at Telluride on September 4th, 2015, before playing at TIFF, where it won the People's Choice Award, the top prize given at the festival. The movie eventually had a limited theatrical release on October 16th. The film ended up garnering 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director for Abrahamson, Best Adapted Screenplay for Emma Donoghue, and winning Best Actress for Brie Larson. The 2016 Oscars were the first year that A24 was even nominated, with them taking home awards for 3 different films, alongside Room's win. Ex Machina won for Best Visual Effects, as heard on episode 246, and Best Documentary for Amy, as heard on episode 265. This is going to be a spoiler-filled episode, so if you've not seen Room yet, we suggest you do so. First off, let's start with you, Alex. What is your history with this film? Had you seen it before, or was this your first time?
I had seen it before. I saw it during its big promotional run when it first came out. I think at that point, Brie Larson was still she hadn't done her whole Marvel run, right? So it was like, oh, she's that person in Short Term 30 or Short Term 13 or whatever that movie is, Short Term 12.
Yeah.
So she was known as just like a good indie actress. And then I remember hearing that the kid in this was Canadian, so that added interest. And yeah, when I eventually did watch it, it blew me away even then. Yeah, that scene like an hour in where he is in the back of the truck in that carpet is just I was on the edge of my seat despite knowing what was going to happen. So I guess that's just the power of the Friday Night Lights soundtrack that they used and the good filmmaking. But I loved it. Obviously dour subject matter, but I loved it at the time, and I love it now.
Nice. Yeah. I remember when I saw it as well. I also believe I went to see it in the theaters. It winning the People's Choice at TIFF was a huge boost to its credibility.
Yeah.
I was reading that, like, by the time the Oscar nominations came out, this was one of the lowest grossing Best Picture nominees ever at that point.
Wow.
It barely made any money, but with the propelling it with the Best Picture nomination, it ended up making quite a bit of money, especially internationally, where I think it had a $13 million budget and ended up making over $50 million, which for a movie of this size and scope and its subject matter is definitely a huge win.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty huge. And yeah, I remember people loved it at TIFF, and what is it? It's partially Canadian. Obviously Tremblay is Canadian, but
It is technically a Canadian and Irish film.
Right. Yeah. So I
because it was
remember
produced
that
there.
being a big part of, Canadian publications love to talk like champion Canadian made stuff. So I remember hearing about it a lot.
There was even like a Telefilm Canada funded release too, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So it's it's actually, and Jacob Tremblay is just from here in Vancouver, where I live. And there's a ton of Canadian people in the background as well. Like it's whether or not it was Canadian funded, it's a very Canadian film.
That's the best. I love seeing that. I love getting that vibe. Yeah, no, it blew me away. It felt like the little movie that could. And I remember thinking at the time, it hasn't felt this way since Little Miss Sunshine. Although I'm sure I'm forgetting some movies.
Yeah, no, it definitely has a similar sort of size and feel to the movie, like Little Miss Sunshine. Obviously, that's much more comedic in nature.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely understand what you mean by that, where it's like one of those really small indie movies that sort of like pushes its way past the crowd to become
Exactly.
something prominent and well regarded and remembered.
Yeah. I will say I probably called it The Room for the for me first hearing about it for like the first however long. But yeah. That's the only other thing I remember is me going, right, it's Room. Just Room.
Yes,
Drop
just
the
Room.
it's cleaner.
Yes, drop
yeah.
the yeah. What about you, Matthew? What's your history with this film?
Oh, I saw it when it came out in cinemas. I was already a pretty big fan of Brie Larson at the time. And I never read it, but my sister was a huge fan of the book. And so when the movie was made, she was like, "You have to see this movie. Like, read the book, but also if you're not going to read the book, see the movie." So, um, yeah, I remember watching it in cinemas on, I don't know if I saw it on day one, but I definitely saw it opening weekend. Um, and very much enjoying it, thinking like, oh yeah, so Brie Larson's going to be at least nominated for all the awards this year,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was, due. I find her filmography very interesting, but I was already a fan of her from Scott Pilgrim,
Oh
from
yeah.
uh, what was the other one? There was one earlier too.
The Spectacular Now.
Maybe I think that was the same year as this, right? But well, it was the same year as Short Term
It
12.
was a
But
year
she showed up in a
earlier,
lot
yeah.
of stuff. So she was in Scott Pilgrim, and then she was in 21 Jump Street, and then she was
Oh, yeah.
in Don John, which I liked. Short Term 12. And then even after this, Trainwreck was the year before this, I believe, wasn't it? Or
Oh
the year after?
yeah.
Yeah.
And before that too, like she'd been on TV a lot. Like I was a big fan of the show The United States of Terra, which I don't know if you guys saw, but
I didn't watch it, but I remember it.
yeah, she played like the eldest daughter of the woman with DID in the movie.
You mean Toni Collette?
Toni Collette, yeah. And
That
she
woman?
also had guest shots on Community and The League. So like she hadn't like had her big moment yet, but she was sort of very present in a way that I was like, this girl's gonna do something.
Yeah, I see in 2010 before or same year as Scott Pilgrim, but much smaller role. I had forgotten she's in Greenberg, that Ben Stiller movie. Yeah,
Yeah. So she'd been around. She'd been very present.
for
Um,
sure.
so and I very much remember being like, this girl is like, she's this woman's gonna do something. She's gonna have a moment, and I'm gonna be happy to be there when it happens. And then this movie happened, and then I had never seen Jacob Tremblay before, although I don't think this is his first role. And it's kind of, it's difficult to get. It's notoriously difficult to get a good performance out of a child actor. Like a movie like this could be, I hate to say it, but a movie like this could be kind of ruined if the child actor wasn't up to it. But he's so up
Definitely.
to it. Like he's so up to it.
He's so good.
He's just so good.
He's so good in this movie. That's what I kept thinking when I was watching it. Just thinking like, it's pitch perfect.
Yeah.
It's not a kid pretending to be mad. It really, the sort of, there is like a melody to the way kids whine sometimes or cry or say certain things that lend it a sense of reality, and he just nailed it. By the way, I brought up his filmography, and you're right, it's not his first role. His first role was in The Smurfs 2 as Blue Winslow.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go.
But yeah, I just thought like I this isn't like my favorite A24 movie by any real stretch, unless you talk about just this year in isolation. But I think it's so well performed. I think in particular, the first half, when it's just the two of them, is so well performed that I would have been shocked if she didn't win. Like
I agree.
all
And
of the awards.
I kind of actually began to feel bad that I was feeling like, I kind of wish we saw more of this terrible experience for them. Just because it was the most, it's not interesting to see, okay, how they, deal with then being in the outside world and the boy having never been in the outside world and so on. But I do it's just the two of them were so good. It's just a two-hander that I could have had another at least half hour of.
Yeah, and I think it's notable that she won in particular over Kate Blanchett and Carol and Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn, both of which were also excellent performances. And Charlotte Rampling in 45 Years too. Like it was a pretty great year for Best Actress nominees, and but I still think it's like a very, very deserving win. And I was kind of surprised they didn't nominate. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but like I don't think they nominated Jacob Tremblay, and I remember being like, if there was ever going to be a kid nominated, why
Right.
not this one?
Was he not?
He definitely had buzz for sure.
Yeah, he had buzz.
I'm sort of, I was wondering if I should bring this up now or bring this up later, but I have a super hot take about this film and Brie Larson in particular, because a lot of the talk has been she's just been picking mostly bad movies since Room, and I mean this in two different ways. One, the smaller indie stuff that she's done has basically been all poorly received, and then she sort of focused her attention on a lot of blockbusters where there's not much capital A acting required. And Matthew, I know you're a fan of the Miss Marvel stuff, so I'm not gonna denigrate that too much, but like I will say, agree. Across the board, for the most part, she has not been great since Room. But my hot take is rewatching it. She was just fine in Room. The movie is completely carried by Jacob Tremblay, and I think she only got the acclaim she did because of how great he was in this film.
That is a piping hot take, my friend.
That is that's boiling hot. So I will go so far as to say that I think you are at least partially correct, because the only way that the first half of this movie in particular works as well as it does is if they are 100% dialed in on each other as actors. So I don't think, like, a lesser performance from Tremblay definitely would have impacted her chances for sure. But however, I don't think he's the reason she won either. Like, I think the first half of this movie in particular, and like, you know me, like, I'm not sure if you've heard me say this, Alex, but Dakota's definitely heard me say this, that like, you give me a film that feels like a play, like two people in a room talking a lot, like that is my happy place. And so,
really?
So like the first half of this movie is like, there's a reason, like, I fully recognize that there's a reason I like the first half of this movie better.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I definitely think that, like, I definitely think she wouldn't have been as good without an amazing scene partner.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what I'm trying to say is, like, she is very good in this movie, very good, no doubt about that. But the acclaim she got, I think, came from the fact that everyone's like, "Oh my god, this movie is so incredible." But I think what was so incredible was Tremblay's performance. And like, I look at the five nominees for the Oscar that year that you had mentioned, I literally would put her 5 out of 5. I know no one likes Joy, but I really like Jennifer Lawrence's performance in that.
I
would
liked
rank
that
higher
movie. I remember
than
not
Brie Larson.
understanding why everyone hated it.
I'm just off the David O. Russell train, is what that boils down to.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Kate Blanchett or Saoirse Ronan would have been my winner that year, and Charlotte Rampling would have been equally deserving.
I think
hot takes.
I didn't really. I know I read this. I just didn't like settle in my mind, I guess, as part of this conversation. But I had forgotten that she won. Brie Larson, that she won for this. I almost think it's like a mix of two things, and it is partially what you're saying, Dakota. So one thing is partially what you're saying, which is her scene partner, Jacob Tremblay, was amazing, and she wouldn't have got the acclaim necessarily without him being so good. But I think it also is maybe they didn't want to nominate, like actually nominate or have win or push somebody as young as Tremblay, even though they did it with like Kirsten Dunst in the 90s or whatever. And so they thought, okay, the way we're going to honor this movie is by giving this great actress who did great things in Short Term 12 an Oscar. And
she definitely had buzz, yeah. Between
you know what I
Short Term
mean?
12
I think it's one of those like career Oscars, except it came really early for her. And I was just surprised that she had won. I forgot about that because I do agree. Hearing those other nominated people, it's hard to say that she was better than them. She was good.
So, you know, the Oscars are never about who's best.
Yes,
exactly.
That is a great point. That is that's a whole other conversation too. It's not actually a good score of art. Good art. I'm using air quotes. You know what I mean? Not that you ever could score it, but yeah. Good point.
I would just say that, like, I think that, and maybe I'm stepping on your toes, Dakota, but like, I don't think she's been bad. I don't think she's been. There's a lot of talk on the internet about like Brie Larson being terrible, especially since, you know, the YouTube grifters
Yeah,
hate
those are like
Captain
incels.
Marvel and Avengers, her performance in Avengers and such. And like, first of all, I think Captain Marvel in particular is a good film. That's just, that's fine. Um, I don't. I think that Unicorn Store, which I haven't seen the whole thing of, to be fair, but like as a director, producer, and star, is a very interesting project. But saying she's bad is Kong Skull Island Erasure, and it is Just Mercy Erasure, and it is Fast 10 Erasure. So,
It's
like,
Between Two Ferns, the movie Erasure.
yeah.
Okay.
And in particular, though, like, if you wanted proof that she's a great actor, like, just watch the most recent season of The Bear. She's amazing. She's only in one episode, but she is so good in The Bear.
I think in Dakota's defense, because I actually sort of agree with both of you. I think she is a great. She hasn't gotten worse at acting or anything, but her choices have not always been great, especially pre or right around the buzz of the room. We have no idea how her career is going to go after that. I imagine many of us thought she wouldn't make some of the choices that she ended up making. Uh, and I think it's less she's been bad and more she's chosen a lot of blah projects. So it doesn't really matter how good she is in them or
Yeah,
how
I
much.
would say that, like, definitely if you don't like, she's obviously been in a bunch of Marvel stuff. Fast 10 is a huge blockbuster. Uh, like, she's definitely made like money choices. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but she also, I don't know if you guys have watched it, but the series Lessons in Chemistry on Apple TV is great.
No.
Like, kind of like legitimately great. And she's really, really, she produced it as well as starred in it. And she's extremely, I'm kind of surprised. That was like 2 years ago. I'm kind of surprised it didn't get more awards buzz than it did. It didn't get none. Um, but like, it seemed like exactly the kind of thing
Hmm.
that would have been like, I think it got nominated for like best limited series, and she got nominated for a Golden Globe for it. And similar along the same lines for the Emmys, but it was just nominations and no wins. And like, it just seemed like the kind of thing that would have won
It
some
seems
stuff,
pretty
right?
interesting.
Like, it's
Yeah, I
a
agree.
very, very good show that I was
Huh.
surprised didn't take home a ton of awards. And
I
also
think it's
features Lewis
oh,
Pullman and a number of other people who are now like big deal famous. So
it just seems like one of those things where it's not even her fault at a certain point. She just got so much chaos and like vitriol from the whole Marvel episode that I wonder if people are in some ways people are going like we're going to push her a little bit less even if she's in a good project because we don't want to be review brigaded or whatever they're called.
I mean, that could be. But either way, you should both. Everyone who's listening should watch Lessons in Chemistry. It's only 8 episodes. It's on Apple TV Plus. It's great.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Well, not to get this conversation too sidetracked off topic, but let us get back to Room here. Sorry for my scorching hot take there.
You're giving my friend Simon a run for his money.
Yes, I am the captain now.
It's a very inside joke, like, that I don't think even regular listeners of your show will get. But
No, probably not. Like, obviously, yeah, that I'm making the
It's not
Captain
just
Phillips
Captain
reference.
Phillips. Yeah, it's not just Captain Phillips.
No, I routinely call Matthew's co-host Simon Captain Hot Takes and various forms of military rank hot takes. So yeah, that joke was meant for
a
one
running
person.
joke on my podcast that hasn't had a new episode in over a year now.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
you call him that too. So yeah, that joke was meant for exactly one person, and that one person is here on the call.
Fantastic.
I want to talk about a little bit about Jacob Tremblay's performance. One thing that I found so fascinating that I think really helped him was just how strong the script was, especially the narration bits. Narration is often such a tricky thing to nail. A lot of people hate narration for the sake of, not being a fan. You'd rather see, don't tell. But I think the narration that Tremblay does is just so incredible that you believe. Like, how often have you done this thought experiment of like, oh, if aliens came to Earth for the first time and they don't know what something is and you're trying to explain it to them, how would you explain it to them? That's sort of what Tremblay's performance is. And so much of it is there in the text and in this narration of him exploring and learning about the world for the first time, despite being a child, but a child who is aware enough of his surroundings. And that's what really sells it in the end for me, is just the ability to act like all of this is brand new to him. Brand new and scary, brand new and exciting, thrilling, all these different sort of adjectives that you can place on a child who has literally been so sheltered from the world that this is their first experience to it. I think he does such a good job with that, and that's the key for me of why this movie works as well as it does.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, actually. But sort of where I was going to say as well, that like, much like another one about a kid who's very sheltered from existence is the Road, which is obviously a very different movie, but they both do a great job of having the kid just be, how to put this, when he needs to be, being very accepting, and then rejecting when something changes, right? So like, and you see that when Ma is like, here's the thing, and he's like, okay. And it's the same in The Road, where like the dad will be like, this is the way it is, and the kid will be like, okay, because it's just how the world is to him, right? And then whenever anything changes or is any different, having a big reaction to that is so like child appropriate. And just, I love the sincerity of it. Like there's a real humanity to the performance. It doesn't feel performed. It just feels like this kid reacting. It's a very naturalistic and wonderful performance.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. At first it took me. I did think it. Or I was aware of the fact that it took me a little bit actually to sort of fall into the rhythm of Tremblay's narration. That's actually where I thought. That's where I bumped at first. I thought he was great in person with Larson, but the narration I wasn't sure. But it, kind of as soon as I remembered it was also an adaptation, it was like, okay, this is supposed to be in a way a little bit novelesque as well, and it's obviously just like it's not just standard or substandard exposition that a director or writer shoved in there because they weren't sure how to write something. It actually reveals more about the character because you see the words he doesn't and does know, for example, or the concepts. So it makes a lot of sense. It's just it becomes one of the better parts of the movie. I just think it because of its because of the fact that it's not just regular narration in a way. It took me a second, but it became a great part of it, and it is part of Tremblay's performance. I mean, when you think about how much work the little actor actually had to do, voice acting and acting, it's nuts. Like I do kind of wonder how much Tremblay knew the ins and outs of what he was acting. You know what I mean? I don't know how old he actually was at the time, but yeah.
He was apparently 8 years old. They didn't give him the full script. They only, obviously he's in most of the movie, but they basically were giving it to him bit by bit.
Right.
Obviously not really explaining the old Nick stuff to him in detail. And as far as I'm aware, they tried to break it down as much as possible of like, this is what you're feeling, while not maybe explaining the larger context of some of the scenes.
Right, that makes
especially
sense.
in room. But, you talk about his narration and the skill that went in there. And the fact that like before Room, it looks like he did 3 animated movies. So he was clearly already aware enough of in terms of how to speak into a microphone and probably take direction in that regard of like, obviously when you're dealing with a child actor, it's usually like more sad, less sad, louder, quieter. You're using very simple adjectives to sort of get the performance that you need from them.
Yeah.
Pretend, your dog is sick and, this makes you really sad. How would you feel? Things like that. That's sort of direction you would give to a child of that age to try to coax a performance out. But yeah, I definitely think him having, from what I can see, 4 movies that he did animated voice work for clearly helped in terms of preparing him for being able to do narration like this. And who knows, maybe he did commercials or TV stuff or something like that I'm not seeing on Letterboxd here.
True, yeah. But yeah, no, great point. That must have prepped him a lot.
Sort of go off a little bit about, we talked about the room set.
Mm-hmm.
This was a physical set that they built. And it's so interesting how they make this room look fairly large, despite the fact that we know every inch and corner of this room. And then at the end of the movie, they go back, part of the sort of the healing process. Jack wants to go back to see room one last time. And so they go there, and obviously all the evidence has been collected, so it's basically empty. And yet, despite the fact that almost everything has been removed from the shed, it looks smaller. And so I wonder if they did maybe something like the 12 Angry Men method, where you're changing the focal length of the lens to make something look wider and more narrow. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's shocking how you believe, for Joy, this is a very small room. This is hell. But for Jack, this is everything. This is massive. This is the biggest room in the world for him. And in the way that they shot it, you actually believe that.
I mean, it's not just the biggest room in the world, it is the world.
It is, yes. Yeah.
Like, I think that's an important distinction. And I think that the end scene where he comments on how small it looks is one of the more powerful ones sort of in the movie, from him, where he's, now that he's seen that the world like exists, and how big and how spacious, how many people and animals and things there are, that like suddenly, his memory of the whole world is dramatically impacted. I thought that was all it's very well written. And I think you're right. I think that I don't know how they shot it, in terms of like, focal length on the lenses or anything like that. But I think that keeping the camera only in room in the first half, like the camera, like Joy and Jack don't leave room for the first half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what helps hammer home the size difference of like room in the first half and room at the end is just that the camera never leaves as well, right? Like it's not just the whole world to Jack, it's the whole world to us as well, for the first hour or so of the movie. So even if they didn't change focal lengths, even if they didn't change angles, I think it would still be impactful just because of that. And it's weird, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this in real life, but like one of the things that Jack calls out when he sees it again is that it seems bigger with the door open. And that's a real thing, like in real life. If a room can seem bigger just by opening the door or a window. And that sort of like metaphor for like the room is bigger than you think it is, room is not the extent of the world, I think really, really works.
Yeah, that's true. Going into the second half of the film, once they do escape, how do you sort of look at that side of things, Matthew, in comparison? Because it almost at times feels like they are 2 separate films.
I mean, almost. There's it's not a tone shift exactly, but it's definitely a different kind of movie. And I think that might be on purpose. Like, for better or for worse, the film is from, well, that's the wrong way to say it, but the film is from Jack's point of view. So making the world seem kind of big and scary and overwhelming is, I think, part of the experience of the film, which I think works. And I mean, I definitely still prefer the first half of the film because it's my kind of movie. But the parts of the film, once we haven't really got to like spoilery territory, but there's a section of the film where Joy is no longer present in the house, and Jack is learning to exist in the world with his grandmother and his grandmother's partner and their dog, and meeting neighbors and such. And that part of the film I really, really, really like. I think a lesser film would be from Joy's point of view. I think it would be a lesser film if it was. And being able to follow Jack as he experiences all these things for the first time is super interesting. But I think that first section of the back half of the movie, where he, and by extension us, are completely overwhelmed by something as relatively simple as the hospital, is kind of brilliant filmmaking and brilliant writing. But it is a different movie though. Like it feels like a different movie at that point.
Yeah, yeah, they do a really good job, especially when the doctor hands them the sunglasses of like making the sun feel really intense, because this is a kid whose only exposure to light is through a skylight, which it looked like it wasn't casting a huge beam inside of room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just making it everything they do in that, especially in that first half of the back half, which is an awkward way to phrase it. Really makes it clear like how much bigger and how big and how overwhelming the world actually is, especially if like the kid, he's been entirely removed from it for so long. I think the filmmaking does a lot of great work here.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think the
Yeah.
filmmaking and the script actually. I'd love to see what the how similar the script actually is in terms of some of the dialogue or some of the narration to the book.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Maybe that's a question we need to ask your sister there, Matthew.
Probably, I'll text her. I'll let you know another time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then, Alex, you already mentioned this, but the escape scene is just so heart pounding because
my
you really
God.
sort of feel the stakes. We get this sort of short montage before the escape happened of Jack practicing rolling out of the carpet and how much he's struggling and how difficult that is. And then you're putting all this pressure where all of a sudden he sort of understands the gravity of their situation, and you're putting him in a situation where he's never been outside of room, and you're asking him to do the biggest thing in the world for him to do, and he's already sort of struggling with both the physicality of unrolling himself from this rug and having to then have the mental fortitude to be able to understand what it means to go up to a stranger and scream for help. And it is just absolutely heart pounding how intense that scene is. Like, I've seen this movie before, but still, when he sits up for the first time, I immediately got paranoid of like, old Jack is going to see you.
I
Not old
know.
Jack, old Nick is going to see you.
There are so many things actually about the choices, like even just the way. Okay, yeah, I guess we're getting into spoiler territory, so
Go right
spoiler
ahead. Yeah.
alert, people. Yeah, when he does jump out, but he's not fully gone because when he jumps is kind of when old Nick sees him, and so Nick does get a bit of a hand around his collar for a bit and tries dragging him back, and then the guy with the dog sees him and he just drops him. The fact that old Nick just drops him, gets in his car, and leaves, I thought, wow, that's actually a really, really good way of showing how differently old Nick looks at this situation than Tremblay's character or Larson's character. Like to Larson's character, this has been her world for, what did she say, 6 years or 5 years, I think.
7, I think, actually.
Seven.
7, yeah.
And for Tremblay, it's been his entire world. But to this guy, old Nick, who's been committing this, as soon as there's a bit of pushback trying to get Tremblay's character back into the truck, he just drops him and runs. I just thought that was, I don't know if that's true to how it actually happens or if they just were going almost for like anti-drama, but I expected I expected it all to play out a lot more intensely. I remember the first time I saw this and misremembering this time, I thought, oh yeah, okay, he's going to really try and grapple with them. He's going to have a big thing with the guy with the dog. But no, just the presence of other people and the slight idea that there's this trouble now makes him just go, okay, forget it. I'm going to leave the kid. You know what I mean? It just was a really good choice for me.
I think it really plays into the idea that old Nick is a coward.
Yes, yeah.
Like,
He's a coward, and that this situation for him isn't nearly as sort of big in the same way as it is for Tremblay, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I also like in that moment, and I think I'm just repeating myself, but like when Jack jumps out of the truck and runs towards the people, and then in particular when he's dealing with the police officer who is, shout out Amanda Brunel, who I like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how overwhelming it must be for him just to like speak to a person who isn't his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's clearly afraid. It's not so much that he looks afraid, it's that he's like, this is another person, I can't handle it. And I think that's also a really great choice, because that is much more of what I think how most kids would react, right? Like, not just that, like, kids who exist in the world, like you and I when we were kids, stranger danger, that's a whole thing, right? But this kid in particular is like, what is even happening? This is a fourth person that exists. Like, I can't handle that. And I think that's a really interesting choice and a really great choice.
And I think an interesting sort of minor detail is it might be Jack's comfortability with his mother that allows him to open up with Amanda Brugel's police officer character, because we see he's never by viewers' indication, he probably has never actually talked to old Nick. At least that's the way it looks like, if not in passing or something. When he sees the person on the street, it's a man, and all he can sort of scream is sort of help, help. He doesn't really directly address him. And then when the police officers show up, he completely ignores the male police officer, but finally reluctantly opens up to the female police officer. So I wonder if it's her sort of exuding that motherly nature that maybe helped him open up a little bit. Because I think this movie is sort of filled with tons of little details like that too.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, actually. I think that, like, just the inherent, like, whether or not he's actually spoken to old Nick, every time he's interacted with old Nick, his mom is freaked the F out, right?
Yeah.
So, like, they're an inherent, like, women are safe, men are not, makes a ton of sense. That's a great call out.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many sort of fine details that I sort of notice in my watch around this time. At first, the first time you see Jack breastfeeding, your first initial reaction is like, okay, he is too old for that. But then you remember just how little food that they are getting. And she and Joey complained several times about not receiving nutritious enough food.
Yeah.
That's basically the healthiest food that she can offer that is both fresh and healthy. And it is also free in that regard. So it's a way to sort of keep her child alive. At first you get that weird, like, this is too old, this is inappropriate. But then you sort of realize the context of it, and it makes perfect sense of why that is included there.
Yeah. All of this makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. And then another sort of little detail that they never really explicitly comment on is Joy's parents are split up. They don't say why, but like anyone that, has watched any sort of true crime, documentary or listened to podcasts or things like that, if a child goes missing or ends up dying in some tragic fashion, very often couples end up splitting up because their relationship cannot handle that amount of trauma together, because they sort of, it becomes a sort of cyclical motion of bringing each other down. And it's never commented on why, but they just said, oh, grandma and grandpa no longer live together. And everyone seems perfectly happy, and like clearly there's still love between the Joan Allen and William H. Macy characters, but they don't need to tell us why they split up. We know why, because losing their daughter after 7 years was clearly far too much for their relationship to handle.
Yeah, I think it's especially made clear too in that scene where they're having dinner or lunch together. I can't remember now. Where William H. Macy pretty explicitly rejects Jack as his relation, as his grandson.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, okay, now I know why they're split up. Like, they couldn't handle this. Like, they couldn't handle the loss. And it's a very unfortunately common thing that, like, loss of a child in any context often means a couple's going to not make it, which is all. This is not a psychology podcast, but like, there's a lot to talk about there. But like, yeah, I think William H. Macy handles all that really well too. He's in very little of the film, but he's so effective in what little he's in. Having to be like, obviously, like, my daughter's home. Who is this child? I can't handle it. I'm bailing. It's
yeah. And I wonder, because it sort of seems like William H. Macy's character is the one dealing with the lawyers and things like that, that he is the only one that maybe has had, I don't want to say contact with Old Nick, but definitely some sort of, definitely has seen him, whether or not it's on the news or through lawyers or the courts or things like that. And so I wonder if he believes that Jack looks too much like Old Nick, and that's why he can't look at him as well, because then it's just a constant reminder of what this man did to his daughter.
Yeah, totally. All of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, since we're speaking about details, I do love the lack of detail around what happens with Old Nick after he's arrested. I think a lesser film would have been like, and now on the trial of Old Nick. And this one, just like a few times in the background, you just hear that, like, oh, he's at trial now. Oh, he's been convicted. Like, it doesn't focus on him at all.
Yeah.
Which is all, it stays very true to the whole thing being from Jack's point of view, because he would have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And, and I think that if they had decided to tell any of that story, it would have been a huge distraction. It would have just brought the movie to a screeching halt. So I think that's also very smart. Like, it gives us the context that we want, enough of the context that we're satisfied, but doesn't like drag the movie away from its point, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from its point or its perspective, really, because you're mostly with just Tremblay.
Yeah, and it doesn't do anything like, you know, put the kid on the stand or anything like that.
Right.
That would be potentially traumatic, or a lesser film would have put him on the stand and had sweeping music plays as he told his story, and everyone started to cry. You know, like it.
Yeah,
it's not exactly a subversion of expectations, but it's, I think, an excellent choice in how to handle that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The last thing I want to bring up is I really appreciated the sound design in this film, and sort of the way it plays with our emotions in that regard. In the room portion, every time we hear Brie Larson's watch beep, we know exactly what that means. And sort of that beeping is deafening, because that's the time that she knows that she has minutes, maybe less, to sort of hide Jack away before Old Nick comes into the room and, you know, does his nightly assault on her. And right after the beep happens, you're sort of just waiting to hear the keypad. And that's another really like deafening noise of what that means to everything. But then it's just throughout the film, we get all these like sort of really interesting little sound designed inclusions of, you know, Jack exploring the world for the first time and hearing cars and all this sort of stuff. I think it does a really great job. It's just one of those really minor details that like they could have gotten away with not caring as much about, and wouldn't have really impacted the movie. But on a rewatch, it's something I really appreciate it.
totally. I agree with that.
Yes, I would say it's everything you're saying, and especially how, again, overwhelming the sound design is as he's escaping. All these sounds he's hearing for the first time. That's all excellent stuff.
Yeah, it's sort of, you know, we already mentioned Sound of Metal earlier, but like the idea of a lot of people who are hard of hearing, when they do get things like cochlear implants, find the world too noisy for the first time, and it takes a while to adjust to it. And I definitely believe that that's the case for Jack as well, because we see that room has soundproofing, so they are already not hearing what's going on outside of the shed, which seems to have been like built up pretty heavily. That clearly this was something that Old Nick was planning. This was a very premeditated crime that he committed. This wasn't like an act of impulse that he did where he just one day decided to pick someone up off the street, a young girl off the street. No, he planned this and prepped a shed specifically for this instance.
Yeah. Ugh.
I know that's get really, really dark and depressing there. Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, you're right. I mean, what you're kind of also saying or pointing out is just how good the writing is. Like they really did a lot of work to set up the context indirectly.
Yeah. Alex, do you have any sort of last things that you want to bring up before we get into the last portion of the episode?
No, not really. Just I guess that the movie still holds up.
Nice. Yeah. Good to know. And what about you, Matthew? Do you have anything last things you want to bring up?
No. I have one very minor problem with this film, that I think is very much a me problem, and I don't know if it's worth bringing up. You tell me.
Ooh, I'm curious. Yeah.
And it's so at approximately the midpoint of the film, when the kid is escaping, there's a needle drop, and I don't know what the song is called, but I find the needle drop really distracting.
Oh, interesting.
Is that the reverby guitar?
Yeah, and I think it's because I know it's from another movie.
It's from Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, I know. I found that distracting too, but because of I have it associated with hot teenagers playing football, you know? not this.
Yeah.
You know?
And so like I every time I hear it, I'm like, oh god, that's not from this movie.
Exactly.
And I find it very, very distracting for the like minute that it's happening, or 2 minutes maybe. I don't know. It's not very long, but it's just long enough to be like, this doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the music, and it also doesn't necessarily feel like it fits with the movie itself. And this is my one major. It's so nitpicky and minor, but it's also like my biggest complaint about the movie.
I hear that.
And like I feel bad bringing it up. I've talked to people about this before, and every time I talk about it, I feel bad because I'm like, it's such a dumb thing to be hung up on, but I get hung up on it. You know,
that mostly just shows how good the movie is, really.
Yeah, and I don't know why they chose other music, like the rest of the score, when there is a score, because a lot of the more powerful parts of this, there's no music at all, which I think is another great choice.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know why they wouldn't just continue with the score, or with maybe like an incidental piece of music from like on the radio or something, which also has the potential to have been too on the nose.
Oh yeah.
But I just found that one piece of music so distracting. And so yeah, I'll say that's my one major nitpick, my one major problem with this film is that one needle drop.
Interesting. Yeah, that's not something I noticed. I think because I have not seen Friday Night Lights, so that didn't stand out to me. Maybe if I watch this a third time, this is something I'll keep in mind. But yeah. Okay, well then let's go on to our final portion, which is our game period where we do a double bill pairing. The rules are simple. We're each going to name a movie that we would pair with this. It could be something that is thematically similar. It could be something by the same director, stars, whatever you want it to be, or just something tangentially that you think would make an interesting double bill pairing. Or maybe in the case of this, maybe something more uplifting. The only rule is it cannot be another A24 film. Alex, as our guest, what movie would you pair with Room?
So I just went with one that is also sad and also about taking a kid. And so I chose The Lovely Bones from 2009. I felt like that could be a paired with Room, just because even the color palette is somewhat similar. Even and the fact that it's an adaptation of a novel, like they both have that quality to them.
Nice. Yeah, I have not seen The Lovely Bones, so I can't comment. Obviously, I know what it is about, but I think that's a fairly good pick there, because it is also, like you said, based on a very popular novel, and it deals with very similar subject matter.
Yeah, and Saoirse Ronan was like younger at the time, and a lot was made of her star turn in that. You know.
Yeah, I feel like that was like one of her first big films after Atonement.
Exactly.
Came out. Yeah. All right, Matthew, what would be your double bill pairing?
And I'd forgotten about the not another A24 film, because I was going to suggest The Captive, which is not a film that I necessarily love, but I think thematically it's about parents whose child has been kidnapped. It's from like the other side of it. And it has another interesting Ryan Reynolds turn. But since we can't choose A24 films, then I'm going to go with the next big obvious choice, which is the 2013 Denis Villeneuve directed Prisoners, which is about a pair of parents whose children are abducted, and tells the story from that point of view, and is very dark and very depressing, and asks a lot of hard questions at the end, and is I think still one of in a filmography full of super strong movies, is still one of Villeneuve's strongest movies.
Yeah,
personally.
I agree.
Yeah, no, Prisoners is excellent, and it's funny. Usually, when I'm trying to figure out my double bill pairing, I sort of bounce ideas off my wife, and she suggested this one. So you'll at least have someone. If I do a poll, you would get her vote.
Well, she has great taste, so.
Yes, that is true. So I originally was also sort of going to go in a similar vein in terms of child abduction stories. And so the one I had originally thought of doing was a film that I love that's criminally underrated called The Kid Detective. I don't know if either of you have seen it, but
No.
it is an excellent, excellent Adam Brody film where basically, when he was a teenager, his character, a classmate of his, gets abducted, and so he starts looking for her and ends up sort of turning that into his career of being a detective. And so most of this movie is very lighthearted and funny, but it sort of does end on a very dark note. If you have not seen The Kid Detective, I highly recommend everyone to check it out. It is absolutely fantastic. Both Adam Brody and Sophie Nélisse are excellent in this film. But the movie that I am going to go with is loved Jacob Tremblay's performance, so I'm going to pick another great child acting performance, and that is, I believe it is the 1978 film Kramer versus Kramer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
God, that movie's amazing.
Oh, 1979. I was a year off. There we go. But yeah, Justin Henry, who plays the son, Billy Kramer, does such a great job. Very sort of similar ask of him to what Jacob Tremblay is having to do, where obviously we understand what a divorce looks like for two adults, but sort of centering the film around a child and what their experience is for a divorce. Especially what makes it so interesting is the fact that this movie came out only a few years after no-fault divorce became legal in the United States. So this was still a very new subject matter for a lot of people. And immediately tackling it with such care and sensitivity from the child's perspective, and Justin Henry doing such a great job with that role was something that always sort of sticks out in my head. Whenever you sort of talk about greatest child acting performances of all times, this is one that always comes to the forefront of any list that people make.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great movie and a classic for a reason. And yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen that, but the kid is really great in it. Yeah.
But just a note, have either of you seen The Kid Detective as well?
No, you know what? It's been on my list, been on my radar because I don't keep a list technically. It's been on my radar for a long time, and I do really love Adam Brody and Sophie Nélisse as well. And like, actually, the film is full of great people, like Tima and Wendy Crewson's in it too. I'm just looking at it now. So like, yeah. Now that with your thorough recommendation, I will definitely check it out soon.
And it's a Canadian film, so this is something that appeals to the two of you.
Very much so.
Yeah, definitely check that out. But Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It is always a pleasure. I'm sorry it took so long to get you back, but I'm very, very happy that you were able to make time for us this week.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much for having me back.
Fantastic. Well, where can people find more of your work, and what do you have going on?
Yeah, well, people can find more of my work either at thatshelf.com or my blog, which is Play with the Rabbit Ears. And other than that, I am just seeing and reviewing a lot of movies.
Yes, you are very prodigious with your output. I'm always impressed with how much you're constantly writing. I always get notifications when you're posting on your Substack and things like that. You post a lot of great content, so thank you.
I post a lot of content. I don't know about it. It's not great every time, but I'm trying.
Well, I like it.
Thank you.
Matthew, thank you again, as always, for being here and being a great co-host. Where can people find more of your work?
So yeah, I mostly write freelance. I also write for That Shelf, where this podcast is obviously part of the network. You can find, I think my most recent review there is of the movie Nuremberg. The easiest way to find my work, though, is to check my personal portfolio, which is stretched.ca. I do link, although I'll admit I'm a week or two behind in actually linking stuff, but I do link all my work there eventually. So if you want to read some movie reviews or hear my voice on a podcast, those are the places to find those things. And then obviously, I post a lot on the socials, in particular Threads, but on most of them I exist, and my handle almost everywhere is SmatthewAF.
Nice. Well, this has been a That Shelf podcast. Visit thatshelf.com for more great film discourse, like where you can read both Matthew and Alex. Follow the show on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at ContraZoomPod. What are your thoughts on Room? Leave a comment on Spotify or send us an email. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. And if you really like the show, consider tipping us on coffee. Thanks for checking us out.